first, BBC Two is online for the net.
In the net tonight, the computer designed to shut down Sizewell B nuclear power station. Is the software too complex? The perils and pleasures of getting yourself online to the network world. Plus our games review with Jules. Can the Power Mac stop the rot at Apple? And getting inside the brain with the digital surgeons.
Sizewell B in Suffolk, Britain's newest nuclear power station, due to start generating this summer. Its containment dome is 1.5 times the size of St Paul's. Inside this cathedral of power, the UK's first pressurised water reactor will generate enough electricity to supply 1.5 million people. I won't be able to stand here in a few weeks' time because this reactor will be working and the levels of radiation around me will be too high. This vast containment building will then be hermetically sealed to prevent any escape of radioactive gases into the atmosphere should the reactor go out of control. But this building is the last line of defence against a possible nuclear disaster. The first line of defence is a computer. It's one of the most ambitious computerized nuclear safety systems in the world. In the event of a potentially disastrous problem, the primary protection system, the PPS, should automatically shut down the reactor safely. But an intense row has centered around the system's software.
When you've got something as complex as 100,000 lines of software, then you'd be pretty confident that it does contain design faults. And that throws you into the realm of probability and statistics. You have to be sufficiently confident that these things will not show themselves in practice. But you can't be absolutely certain. You've moved away from the realm of logic and certainty.
Nuclear Electric produced this glossy video last year to answer criticisms about the software after leaks to the press of a report by the Nuclear Installations Inspectorate, the government watchdog which has to license Sizewell safety systems before it can start operating. That report showed that the NII had serious concerns about the software's complexity. Inside these cabinets are just a few of the boards which hold the 100,000 lines of computer code that make up the overall system software.
These are the chips that contain the functional software of the system. The rest of this board is a standard microprocessor board. This is the Sizewell specific software that lives in these chips.
So 2,000 lines of code and many man-years of work have gone into these 4 tiny little sections of software.
That is correct, and many man-years of testing have also gone in to this equipment as well. So I'm confident that these chips perform as they were designed to perform.
Computers have been used since the early 1960s in nuclear power stations, and we've built up experience on a variety of systems. First of all, we use them for monitoring purposes, then for control purposes, closed-loop control. So we've built up a history of experience on computers gradually throughout the UK until we've reached the point now where we have the confidence to reap the safety benefits of computers for protection functions.
Some people think that it's too hard to test, that you need to have formal mathematical methods. Have you used those sort of methods?
We have used very structured methods in the production of the software. The contractor that we have chosen is experienced in structured software design techniques, and all of those have been used in the development of this software.
So the software is mathematically proven?
The software has been produced with a very structured software design technique.
Another key criticism levelled at the system is that it doesn't come up to recent standards laid down for safety-critical software, and future alterations could have an unpredictable ripple effect across the entire system.
They're going through a major exercise to convince everyone, particularly the inspectorate, that this system is as good as it needs to be. If you change it, it becomes essentially a new system. Trying to convince yourself that a change in software is, in some sense, a small change is difficult. Some people would say impossible. There is no such thing as a small change in software. If you change it, then you really should start the validation exercise over again.
One of the areas I know that the Nuclear Installations Inspectorate has looked at is the question of standards and international standards. And I think that you, yourselves, Nuclear Electric, are quite happy to talk about IEC 880, I think it is. Do you feel that the software meets that standard now?
The software is broadly compliant with that standard. That standard was developed in the early 1980s, and it is the only recognised nuclear standard. It was actually developed after the software production, after Westinghouse were awarded the contract for the primary protection system. But the system is broadly compliant with that standard.
Nuclear Electric stressed their wide range of safety systems. However, this week they confirmed Sizewell is facing delays because of a new legal requirement for more public consultation. And tonight, the Net can reveal also that the Nuclear Installations Inspectorate hasn't granted Sizewell its safety license either. According to them, tests on the PPS software have yet to be completed satisfactorily. It's highly unlikely that problems with Sizewell's computer protection system will compromise the safety of the station as a whole, but the debate over the PPS has highlighted the fact that it simply is impossible to build a large and complex system which is error-free, has a perfect design, and is easy to test.
For the uninitiated, online communications may appear to be the preserve of the businessman or computer buff. But with many services now offering electronic mail, information retrieval and conference forums through easier interfaces, being online is becoming an attractive method of communication.
I use a number of online services, mainly CompuServe. That's a worldwide online service that lets you send email to people all around the world.
Being blind, I have found that the computer actually is, to use a copyrighted word, a window onto the world.
Well, I use my design to write to my aunties and uncles, and like when there's been a hurricane or a fire or something, asking how they've been.
It's good stuff. You can generally find out whatever you want. You've got some strange little query. Somebody somewhere over the world is likely to know the answer.
I like using it because it's more quicker.
I've started using email to communicate with a friend in the States and also a friend at Manchester University who are on the same system.
Initially I started because I wrote some music and my friend was saying I should distribute it and let other people hear it. This is on the internet using something called FTP servers and I've placed my music up there.
In my work as a vicar, it's quite important to keep in touch with people, and I do use it to keep in touch with other people in churches right through the world.
I was at college in America and I bought the computer basically to do essays. I got on the network and I was very, very homesick. I was quite depressed and the network was really a way of helping me out of it.
It's like letter writing, only it's letter writing with a difference. It's the old style of letter writing, which we had in the Victorian ages when people were writing letters. I think this is the real beauty of the whole thing, is letter writing online.
For instance, Kristen, with her aunts and uncles in California, she'll write to them tonight, she may get a reply tonight, she may write back again, they may write back again. Within a week, they could have exchanged 20 messages, had a huge conversation.
You can guarantee at least every hour there's a gender check. Everybody wants to know what sex you are.
Only on certain channels.
Well, most of them. And then as soon as
you hang out in the wrong places.
As soon as they find out that you're female, it's like, whoom. You get all these messages and, oh, what do you look like, where are you from, how old are you single, all this kind of stuff. You know, well, why don't you just go away?
And all the guys on the system hear there's a girl listening in, then, you know, they get quite excited about it. But I haven't actually experienced any problems with that. And you can call yourself what you like. It's not a problem.
I have got confused sometimes about a person's gender. Names and handles, by their very nature, are not necessarily definitive.
I just wonder how a computer romance really does happen.
I think we've been very honest to each other across the network. And when we did finally get to meet each other, there was no real shock. We knew the person before we met the person, which I think is a plus.
It's sometimes a bit difficult to put your feelings across when all you can see is words. So you've got to use language correctly. And one of the good things about the net is the new things, like the smileys and the emoticons.
A smiley is a very good way to let somebody know that you are joking.
It took me ages to figure out what this was, first of all, and I thought, oh, it looks just like a face smiling on its side. Correct.
I just stick with conventional syntax.
Most of the time it's either a little smiley, or if I'm poking fun at Jim, it's usually two little dots and a capital P, which is like sticking your tongue out.
GDR is a common one, grin, duck and run, where you've said something funny, but you know, it's a bit dodgy.
I just use grin.
You'll often chat to someone, in fact, online, and you won't know what country they're in. It'll only come out halfway through the conversation that they're actually in Japan.
You don't see whether that person's black, white, red, yellow, whether they're from a middle class, upper class, working class family, whether they're disabled. Nothing.
Perhaps it's the grail of information, the one place where everything you seek is there, and all the whole universe is at your fingertips, and that's perhaps what I want.
The attraction for accessing the wealth of information is just that. I love information.
All it is a replacement for old-fashioned things like normal mail. So the same things go on. The way people write letters to each other about everyday things, they do using computers and online services.
Life is a journey, life is a quest, and being on the internet is part of my journey, part of my quest.
Next, in our weekly games review, Jules takes a shot at FIFA Soccer for the SNES. And still to come in the net, marketing the hottest new personal computer of '94. Plus 3D brainstorming at Guy's Hospital.
This is my cattle market. And as you can see, I haven't got any cats. But I have got a dog. Named Goat. Goat, what are you trying to prove? My switch! Sport. Don't you just hate the way it dominates? One moment on TV it's the Olympics, then Wimbledon, the Test match, snooker, that boat race. And worst of all, football! Why? Sport's so good that we then have to have game shows about it. And just in case we don't get enough of it, there's 956 sporting video games to play. Why are there so many sporting video games?
Well, I don't know.
Happy haircut! Happy haircut! Happy haircut! Where did you get to? Whilst you've been away, yet another sporty video game has been released. FIFA Soccer. Last Christmas, this game made many a Mega Drive owner touch Cloud 9, and now it's out on the SNES. But the World Cup is nearly here, and loads of footy games are coming to a shop near you. Don't worry, this one's going to take some beating. Why? Because it's good. It's so easy to learn how to play, and once you have, you're hooked. FIFA's got everything. Headers, tackles, penalties, backflips, team formations, strategy, passing, goal kicks, and even crowd noise. Oh yes, and there's also a league to play in. Up to 4 people can play at once, which is great. Competing against each other or all against the computer team. And now on the SNES, it looks even better. Make sure, whatever you do, you don't give it to the dog. Goat, let's go. Goat? Goat? Goat! No! Oh, by the way, I'll give FIFA a proud 9.25 out of 10. Goat! Goat!
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the information purification directives. Created for the first time in all history a garden of pure ideology.
In 1984, Apple Computer stunned American TV audiences during a break in the Super Bowl with an ad made by film director Ridley Scott that was so startling they only had to show it once. And with it, they launched a machine that took on the IBM PC and revolutionized the way we interact with personal computers. 10 years on, and Apple would have us believe that they are once again in the vanguard, leading the next revolution in personal computing.
We shall prevail.
For only the second time in its history, Apple is talking to its ad agency about a major worldwide TV ad campaign for a new computer, this time called the Power Macintosh. The microprocessor in the old Mac has run out of steam. And after a decade of doing battle with IBM-compatible PCs, Apple's share of the personal computing market has grown to only about 10%, while profits are on the slide.
They've gone from, in about 2 years, something like 60% gross margins down to around about 20%. On the other hand, their market share has increased. They'd like to increase their market share and increase their profitability. So what they have to be able to do is make more powerful computers more cheaply.
The machine feels fast. More importantly, it allows you to get more work done in less time for the same price point as what you pay for the computer today. So this is what's called price performance. And it's a critical factor in the computer industry because price performance doesn't let up. Each new generation of chip just keeps raising the bar, if you will. And Apple needs to move forward really aggressively right now because with all the Intel-based PC clones, their price performance needs to advance faster than that of the competition.
It's very important for Apple to be on television. We've not really had stories that have been strong enough to significantly move consumer perception of Apple or Macintosh on for the last 2 to 2.5 years, hence our absence in any sustained way from that medium. What Power Mac allows us to do is to go on air with the most radical story from Apple's perspective in their computing offer for the last 10 years since the original launch of Macintosh.
But the Power Macintosh is a gamble. It contains a new microprocessor, the Power PC chip, which is more powerful. But to produce it, Apple has had to embrace the old enemy IBM, as well as chip manufacturer Motorola.
PowerPC itself is a chip, strictly speaking. It's a new family of chips that we designed with IBM and Motorola. Apple Computer traditionally has used a different technology for its chips, like other personal computers. And we decided a few years ago to be able to keep increasing the performance of our machines that we needed to go to a new technology which is called RISC technology.
RISC, or Reduced Instruction Set Computing, has been around for years in more expensive machines. RISC chips can process more than double the instructions at the same speed as other chips.
One of the things that we wanted to do was to have a fundamental microprocessor at the bottom of our chip that was used by a lot of different companies. We were concerned that if we picked a chip that only Apple was using, that people would consider it sort of an isolated platform. So one of the advantages of working with Motorola and IBM as well as Apple is we know a lot of companies will be using it.
Although most existing applications should run on the Power Mac, software developers must rewrite their application software to take full advantage of its power. This could be the biggest gamble of all.
The developers are very important to Apple because this is a very nice computer. This one's got almost no applications on it. It's very nice, it's very fast, but without any applications it's not going to do very much. So it's very important. Outside of a few curious people, not many people buy computers just for the sake of it.
As a software developer, we develop not only for Apple's products, but also for IBM, Compaq, Dell, and all the PC clone manufacturers. So we see this competition. As far as we're concerned, the customer will decide which computer is best for their application. The market will win. But for Apple, they've got to be out in front.
The biggest challenge is going to be reversing uncertainty about Apple's ability to be compatible, or indeed Apple's ability to be truly affordable. For the last 2 to 2.5 years, both in terms of Apple's real offer and in terms of our communications activity behind that, we have worked with Apple to try and turn that perception around.
This time, Apple itself cannot afford to fail in getting its message across. As well as TV ads, it's using every weapon in the marketing armory. Newspaper and magazine ads, extensive press briefings to ensure editorial coverage, and even roadshows to directly reach consumers.
I think in the past some of Apple's products have sold in spite of themselves, or rather in spite of some of the marketing. I think the products have been very good, and that sometimes the products have been better than the marketing that's been carried out. Just because something's technically excellent doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a huge success. I mean, we've got the graveyard behind me here. Some of the products here were technically really innovative and technically great. Very few of the companies still exist, and none of the products.
The journey into the brain starts here in the CAT scan, the equipment that gives state-of-the-art images, as many as 100 at one scan. But that's not enough. For more information, I'd need to climb inside a different machine to give pictures of what's inside my skull. And then, to build up the layers even more, there's more equipment for pictures of blood vessels and arteries. So how would a neurosurgeon put together all these pictures in his own brain before he delved into mine? This journey takes us much further than X-ray images and on to the latest advances in 3D image manipulation.
Conventionally, the X-ray CT images on the left and the MR images on the right will be displayed as a series of 2D slices or pictures up on a light box on a screen, and there will be a very large number of those images to look at.
So using the conventional X-ray method, how many slices, if you like, do you have to look at for one typical case?
Well, it could be anything up to 500, and from that we have to assemble them mentally and form a three-dimensional image of it.
It was difficult for the surgeon to relate the bony detail here to the soft tissue detail seen on these images. So he wished to register these two data sets together and then to combine them to produce a better representation for the surgeon to look at.
So David Hawk's team designed new software to register the left-hand CT image of the skull with the right-hand MR image of the soft tissues inside the skull.
Now these are the images after the registration process, and we've overlaid the bone from the CT in orange on top of the MR data, which shows the soft tissue and the tumour. And I can fade the bone in and out, and using this type of interaction we can clearly see the relationship between the tumour here and the bone that's surrounding it there.
Well, these are the arteriograms. Again, they can tell us more specific information about particular blood vessels. For example, here's some of the posterior circulation here. But again, if you imagine the tumour superimposed on that in sort of outside the screen, as it were, here, what we have to establish in our mind's eye, as it were, is where that blood vessel is in relation to the tumour bulk.
But it's almost impossible to tell how close they are to that tumour just from looking at that image and the 2D slices. So we have developed 3D techniques within our laboratory to show the relationship between the blood vessels, the tumour, and the bone. And we see the grey here is the bone information that we've got from CT. That has been accurately registered with the tumour, as shown previously, which is in green here. But now we've also incorporated the blood vessel information, which is shown in red. On the computer screen, we rock the image from one side to the other in order to get a much better impression of 3D. If I were to stop this, because it's just a 2D flat screen, you would lose a lot of the cues of 3 dimensions. So by displaying this as a movie loop and rocking from side to side, we're able to get a much better impression of the 3-dimensional nature of the data that we're looking at. And we're now providing these images on a workstation in theatre so that the surgeon can relate the view that they see through the operating microscope, which is only a restricted view, alongside the computer-generated images, so that the surgeon can relate the information seen in this image to the rather gory scene down through the operating microscope.
In terms of precision, we're going to have a much clearer feel for the precise anatomical relationships of different nerves and blood vessels, and it will allow us to predict more accurately where we can expect during the course of an operation to identify individual structures.
Now, looking just a little bit to the future, if we can accurately relate the spatial locations of this image to the spatial locations within the 3D data we've acquired before the patient has gone into the operating theatre, the surgeon might even be able to put on a virtual reality type headset and have these images displayed on the headset to guide the surgical process.
But this is not virtual reality. This is not an artist's impression of what a tumour might look like. This is an image of an actual tumour, as real as any photograph, except it is made by a computer.
Coming up after the credits, NetCetera. Start your video now. Or for a printed NetCetera and details of the BBC Networking Club and other network services, send a stamped addressed envelope to this address. Next week in the net, why the government doesn't want your data to be as secure as it could be. Everything you want to know about CD-ROMs. The cheap software package that's revolutionising desktop graphics. And in the net attack, Jules lifts off with Space Ace on the Philips CDI. And finally from the net...
We have a secret design and engineering centre in Bedfordshire. Our computer system cost nearly £250,000. We use it for all aspects of bra design and engineering, from the original concept right the way through to grading all the sizes. Technology's been useful with UltraBra because it has 46 different components and 26 sewing stages, which is approximately double that of an ordinary bra. Technology is definitely helping us take the bra into the 21st century.